Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. And I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWS.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host, as always, Daniel Alameda on the ones and twos. A lot of stuff to get into, but before we do, make sure you guys do us a huge favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. Daniel, we got a lot of stuff we're going to get into today. I guess just make the announcement now. Zim Hude will be joining us live very shortly, as we'll be talking all things Bengals through, including what to do next. So much to get into. I think I want to start off in college football really quickly before we get started. I want to start off in college football, Daniel. Alabama missed the first ever 12-team playoffs. And if you don't know, I am a huge Alabama Crimson Tide fan. And let me be clear. Let me be the first to say they deserve to miss the playoffs. You can't have the performances you've had this season and think everything is justified. This year doesn't matter for Alabama. It's about what you do moving forward. Kalen DeBoer, he is going to be working to get his guys in here. The biggest question mark for me is who's going to be the Alabama Crimson Tide quarterback next year. Well, Jalen Milroe moving over to the draft. Thank God. You've got to ask who's going to be the guy to sort of lead Bama into the future for the next 2 seasons, right? What style quarterback does Kalen DeBoer like? No doubt the guy has an eye for talent, right? No doubt. He was able to bring the best out of a guy like Michael Penix Jr. Can he do that for maybe another transfer? Maybe there's a guy that they went out and they're recruiting. Who knows? But I want to keep it to the basics. And then I'll just say, I'm not mad that Alabama missed the playoffs. I'm really not. While everyone else in college football is probably dancing and happy and singing on the Crimson Tide's grave, use this year, you use this year as use this offseason and this year as a chance to build on what he wants his program to look like, because no doubt they're going to stick behind him. They're going to see if this guy could be the real deal, could have the same success that he had in Washington for the University of Alabama. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. My biggest issue with this whole Alabama discussion is the talk online. Even this goes to your former head coach Nick Saban, and you go look at the athletic director. Pretty much as soon as Saban made his comments, the athletic director echoed the same exact comments, and they're talking about the Crimson Tide schedule, saying, hey, what good is it to have the toughest strength of schedule if you're not awarded it? And I just quite frankly think that's BS. And the reason why I think that's BS is your toughest non-conference game was against a 5-7 Wisconsin team without their quarterback. So I look at the strength of schedule. Yes, you got to play tough teams in the SEC, but it's also like you didn't just lose to Georgia and you didn't just lose to Tennessee. You lost to a 6-6 Vanderbilt team. You lost to a 6-6 Oklahoma team. Those are 2 teams that aren't of the upper echelon team. So for me, I'm with you. My biggest sentiment is they deserve to not be in this playoffs. They did. Yes, you could make the argument SMU's strength of schedule wasn't as good. Maybe Alabama looked better in spurts. The fact is, and you said this, before, you put up 3 points against Oklahoma. That is pretty much enough for me to say, hey, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs. It's not like you just had 2 losses. It's not like you just lost to Georgia or you just lost to Tennessee. You lost to 2 teams that are of the middle of the pack in the SEC. And for me, that definitely is enough to say you didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. So just switching over to the playoffs real quick, I also don't think that they would have won more than 2 games in the playoffs. I think that they would have got knocked out. Maybe they could have won the first game, but this, crop at the top, Malik, Oregon, Georgia, I don't think that Alabama could have gone back-to-back games against these teams, even a team like Texas, even a team like Tennessee. I don't know if they would have, faced them. So I'm curious to see how they perform in the bowl game. And I think you're right. When you look at the future of Bama, Kalen DeBoer deserves to have a couple seasons to really earn his chops. But this first season wasn't a good indictment of, the type of head coach in just his overall culture in Alabama. So I'm going to give him some grace and say, hey, maybe next year they can turn it around. But my hanging point that I'm looking at is, hey, Jalen Milroe, for as bad as he is and issues that he has, look at what Nick Saban did with him last year. They went 12-1 and they played with his deficiencies. And there's even times this year where they did play with his deficiencies. There's times where people are talking about Jalen Milroe being a Heisman candidate and they faltered. That game against Oklahoma showed me everything I need to know. Oklahoma had a masterful game plan against Jalen Milroe. They stopped him for less than 20 rushing yards. So Kalen DeBoer got outcoached in that game. And it's very rare that we said, hey, Nick Saban and Bama got outcoached, but Kalen DeBoer and Alabama got outcoached. So they got to go back to the drawing board, build some confidence with this bowl game heading into this offseason. And it really is going to be key to see who's their quarterback next year. So I'm excited to see it, but the Kalen DeBoer era in Alabama, Malik, it's not off to a hot start so far. So
I mean, it's the first year.
Yeah,
I'm first year with an incumbent quarterback. What do we realistically expect the guy to be able to do? That's my thing. In year one, knowing because even with Jalen Milroe's deficiencies, saving them still struggled at points. There were still big games that they struggled with them with. It was not like they were able to just overcome everything. No, they fell short. And I think that if you looked at what Milroe was doing in the beginning of the season, it looked like it had a lot of promise. It really did. But I'm not judging the guy a little too harshly on the season. I will say the Oklahoma loss was abysmal. You scoring 3 points is unacceptable. Losing to Vanderbilt, unacceptable. But then again, that was your classic football, coming off of the high of a huge game after they beat Georgia. So, we'll see how they make out. Let's move on over to the NFL. If you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. Hey, man, it's time to talk about the Buffalo Bills. Listen, they lost to the Rams this past week, which was probably the best game of the week in terms of, like, if you look offensive points, if that's your thing. Both of these teams came to play. Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford did great. Josh Allen put the onus on himself, bringing the Bills back when they were down. Do you think that this is the year where the Buffalo Bills are ready to take the next leap? One can make the argument that is. They've done things, right, that have been sort of their Achilles heel the last couple of years, like beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They've been able to be consistent. They were able to round off and win their division amidst all the chaos where everybody was saying the Jets, the Dolphins, this, and third. They were able to be the ones to come out of their division again. They're playing with a certain level of confidence, and not all losses are alike. It feels or it felt as if this loss was it was a healthy loss. It was one of those ones where you just take it on the chin and you say, you know what, damn, like they were the better team today. We got off to a slow start. Our mistakes that we made early in the game hurt us, but we know what kind of team we are. I can confidently say if the Bills and the Rams play each other 10 out of 10 times, I don't know if the Rams even win half of those.
Yeah.
That Bills team looked like they were on fire. Looked like they were a team on a mission. And what I think is so impressive is that the fact that Josh Allen is being a dual threat, man. He's doing it with his arm. He's doing it with his leg. Undoubtedly, my MVP is Joe Burrow this season. But typically the MVP has a playoff team, a winning record. So I guess next in line for me would be a Josh Allen. The season that Josh Allen is having needs to be talked about more. More importantly, not even more importantly, but even more so, we need to discuss the job Joe Brady has done with Josh Allen, playing to his skill sets, allowing Josh Allen to be in. This looks like the Josh Allen that was with Ryan Dable. This is what I think I'm seeing right now. We're seeing a confident player, a player that is confident in his skill set, and we're seeing a player, to be quite honest with you, that wants to win, man. Yeah. That wants to win, and he's not going to take no for an answer. Daniel, what are your thoughts on Josh Allen?
Yeah. He's not going to take no for an answer. My issue, Malik, it's the same thing. This game was so reminiscent of that Chiefs game in the playoffs. And I remember vividly watching that game. I had a couple friends in college who were huge Bills fans. Malik, it's the same story. And that's what I'm just concerned about, man. This dude put on a performance of a lifetime. This dude had the greatest quarterback game in fantasy football history. Obviously, that's fantasy football, but 6 total touchdowns, and they lost the damn game. They lost. And this is an indictment of their entire season. But go back and look at that Chiefs game in the playoffs, man. This is the story of the Buffalo Bills. This has been what has plagued them time and time again. This dude is quite possibly a top 3 physical talent we've ever seen at the quarterback position. This dude is the best quarterback in the red zone in the NFL this year. This dude is having his best turnover-worthy plays in the NFL in his entire career. He only has 5 interceptions. This dude is putting his team on his back. And they still lost the game. So they're having an amazing season. They're looking great. They just dog walked the 49ers on national television. This was a, high-powered game back and forth, but there was just mistakes on all 3 fronts, right? You go even look at Sean McDermott, right? Respectfully, he took ownership for, that timeout at the end of the game, and they still would have had to. They only had a 2% chance to win the game, but he blew a timeout, which left them with only 10 seconds left in the game. So that was a serious coaching error. My concern is, Malik, that Josh Allen continuously does it all, and they still can't get it done. So is this the year that they get over the hump? I think this is a year very similar to last year, where there isn't a clear-cut number 1 team. And the Kansas City Chiefs have the best record, but I don't know if, they're a, shoo-in to make the Super Bowl. Same thing like last year. Maybe it was the Ravens last year. Maybe it was the Buffalo Bills. Maybe it was the Dark Horse Texans. I think it's very similar this year. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers still in the mix. You got the Kansas City Chiefs. You have the Buffalo Bills. I don't know if there's a clear-cut team to make the Super Bowl, but I don't know. I'm not picking the Buffalo Bills to do it, to be honest with you, Malik. I think that I'd probably pick the Kansas City Chiefs over them this year. And it may sound crazy, but it depends on where that first game is. I think that they could lose their first playoff game. It depends on who they play, but a team like the Chargers could give them a serious run for their money, in round 1. So I'm curious to see how they finish off the season, but I think they'll finish off hot. They may go undefeated the rest of the season. I'm just curious to see, can they do in the playoffs for back-to-back games? And if I'm a betting man, I don't think that they will. So.
Listen, we're going to get back to a lot of the conversation that we got to have. Like, we have the A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts and stuff like that discussion on tap. But we've got Zim in the back office. We got Zim going to be joining us live here now. So without further ado, Zim, who's that? What's going on?
How you doing?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I heard Daniel talking, a lot of this Bill stuff, saying he's got all these Bills friends in college and stuff. You got to get you some new friends and start hanging out with some Houday dogs like me. Can I talk about that game real quick?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I don't know if we're looking for Krispy Kreme sponsorships or anything like that. There was a lot of glaze going on the Bills just now. I didn't hear enough glaze on Matthew Stafford in that game. Matthew Stafford was 10 for 11 on 3rd downs in that game and was unstoppable for most of that game. There was not a throw that he didn't complete. He ended with a higher QBR and a higher quarterback rating. And I know that Josh Allen got all those touchdowns, but he had 3 tush pushes. Matthew Stafford played a Joe Burrow-like game, in my opinion. No mistakes, cooking. I just want to point that out.
But look, even on that, I think it shows that the Bills, we have a little bit of question marks in their secondary, right? Are they going to be able to replicate this exact thing in the playoffs? That's going to be the ultimate test. Regular season is what it is, but can you replicate that in the playoffs? The Bills have always been a juggernaut in the regular season since Josh Allen's gotten there for the most part, at least. It's about what happens in the playoffs. Can you put it all together? Are they going to be able to put it all together? Look, we're going to talk about the Bengals here, but before we do, Zim, what is that hat? That hat looks pretty dope, man.
This is a company I was working with. I did a giveaway for these guys not too long ago. This is actually it's almost like a custom little, Reds and Bengals collab, whatever. So I'm really big on my hat game. So this one is like, somebody said it's a Reds hat. Actually, I know nothing about baseball except that I need to hand my son apparently a baseball bat because Juan Soto's of the world are like making more than Tom Brady and LeBron James, which is as ever made. And but yeah, this is actually a Bengals logo on a Reds whatever. We might have to do another giveaway if people are really feeling that.
Yeah, man, I saw the hat, and by the way, I had no idea he was going to wear the hat, nor did he probably know I was going to wear a hat today. But no, I saw the hat, and I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. The one thing I want to touch on before we get to our Bengals talk is, there's like a little bit of trouble in paradise, real quick. And Zim, if you want to weigh in, you'd absolutely can. A little trouble in paradise between the Eagles when it comes to AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of chatter, being had about, okay, what's going on, right? These two don't seem like they're on the same page. Daniel, roll the clip.
That's complaining need to be accountable, and I'm just being honest. What I'm saying? Like, and he know this. He, I don't know the whole story, but I know that one is trying, and I mean, 11 could be a little better with how he respond to things. And they was friends before this. It's like, man, but things have changed, and I understand that because life happens. But it's the business side that we have to make sure that we don't let the personal get in the way of the business, and that's what we got to do better as right now, because we know it's an issue. Everybody's seeing some things, but we need to be able to talk things out as men. You know what I'm saying? But we need to let personal stuff go and let's get right for this game, because, man, it's like a lot of stuff, most of the time, it's just a conversation that just need to be had. But the person with the problem got to want to talk to the person.
So that's very, very insightful to me, right? It was long-winded. He said a lot there, but that was very, very insightful for me. One of the leaders in Brandon Graham coming out pretty much saying that the person with the problem has to be able to talk to the other person to fix the issue. These issues date all the way back to last season. There was a little bit of, issue back and forth in the Eagles locker room. Luckily, I have some people that I know that kind of put me in the know when it comes to things. It rubbed a lot of the teammates wrong when AJ Brown missed their playoff game, decided to go down to a boxing match in Atlantic City, and he kind of voiced some of his frustrations to a boxing reporter that never covers the NFL. But I remember when that box reporter put that information out via a tweet and on a radio, and it shocked everybody. Everybody couldn't believe that some of the bombshell stuff that he was saying, like the fact that Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown hadn't talked in weeks, and their relationship is not what it used to be. What does this all stem from? Who knows? But one thing I could tell you is it salvageable? That's got to be the big question for the Philadelphia Eagles. Is this thing salvageable? Because this is a Philadelphia Eagles team that we're looking at, and we're just like, they could be a problem. They 100% could be a problem. But I personally think that for me, if I'm the Eagles brass, I got to ask ourselves, is our quarterback actually a leader? Is our quarterback actually a leader? Because I could tell you right now, could you imagine a situation like that happening in Cincinnati?
Oh, my God.
Where Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase aren't talking? Right?
Can you imagine our fan base if that were to happen? Like, they freaked out after week 2. Like, off of bro getting a unsportsmanlike, like everybody turned, like, oh my God. Like,
it was the end of the world. I remember that. So, like, I don't know. What do you guys make of the whole AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts situation? Dan, you can go first.
Yeah, I think the part that's frustrating for me is when we look at a team like the Bengals who are scrapping for wins, 3 straight losses before this past game. This is an Eagles team that's on a 9-game win streak. Like that's the part for me. I'm looking at this like, man, I understand they're not passing the ball a lot. Jalen Hurts in this passing offense is literally passing it at a bottom 5 rate. And I understand you could have lost that Panthers game. And I understand your offense isn't running on all cylinders, but man, you are on a 9-game win streak. What are we talking about here? I understand it. Listen, last year, you didn't have Saquon Barkley. This year, you got a dude who's an MVP candidate at your running back position. And this is the frustrating part, man. Like, I think that we could talk about Jalen Hurts, but I also think that we got to talk about A.J. Brown. This has been, a constant theme with him to where he's just it's the wide receiver syndrome. And I understand it, right? You want the ball. Wide receivers, elite wide receivers. This dude is one of the best receivers in the NFL. You're going to want the ball. So I understand that. But this is the part where all great teams, players need to learn to take a step back, especially if you're winning. And you would just hope that Hurts and AJ Brown are on the same page. So for me, I think it's frustrating. I think that it does show some cracks in this Philadelphia Eagles armor. And I think that it shows to where, yes, it's a culture thing. And you look at the other teams like the Detroit Lions. Could this hurt them facing those great teams in the playoffs? And I think that this could. And I think that if you're looking for a way to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, it is forcing them to pass the ball. And maybe that's where AJ Brown's looking at, saying, hey, if we're not able to pass the ball right now, heading into the playoffs, we're going to have to be pass the ball. So I can understand from that standpoint. And I do think that it does raise some red flags for me, because as pretty as it looks right now, playoffs are a different ballgame. So,
yep, Zim.
I'm more concerned about my fantasy football team. I got AJ Brown, and we're headed to the playoffs. I got a first round bye, so maybe they get their stuff together, and we go and win this championship. I got money on the line, but no. In all seriousness, I do think in the long run it will pop up, and it's kind of unfortunate because I don't really have a dog in the fight. I don't hate the Eagles or anything like that. So, but I do like to see, like guys just, come together and, work things out. I hate that it's even public like that, honestly. Like that, I'm just not the off the field stuff. I don't know if people really been following me for a while. I just don't really get into it as much. When I was a non-believer in Hurts coming out of college, I didn't think that he would ever be as good as he is now. Now, a lot of people can credit the offensive line and the scheme and all these different things, I'm sure. But we were literally having an argument in one of my group chats about like a top 10. And I was like, I got Purdy over him and they were killing me. And I was just like the elements of going through a first read in your progression and different things like that. You still see him running variants of read option and different things like it's simple to me. Yeah. And to me, I don't know. I'm not trying to diminish who he is, but I think that it is very telling that you have probably the second best wide receiver combo in all of football, and you can't get the ball to them with a top 5 offensive line, like probably top 3 offense left tackle, top 1 right tackle in football, top 1 running back. Like this is insane. Defense balling, top GM in the football, and you can't get the ball to these guys. Like that is very concerning. And I know people don't remember this. Remember Jalen Hurts the year that Burrow got it popping? My argument where they thrust him into a top 5 like conversation, my argument had always been Joe Burrow took the worst offensive line in football to a Super Bowl. They took Jalen Hurts in his first round, and he got put out by Tom Brady. He then comes back with AJ Brown and then catapults himself into a Super Bowl and then gets into a top 5 conversation in a year that they were almost ready to move on from. You remember Hurts kind of in the hot seat going into that season, and that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember when they started having doubts about Jalen Hurts and his future with the Philadelphia Eagles, and when they went to the Super Bowl, all the narrative somehow flipped. They believed all of a sudden that they could win.
Somebody said Burrow with that roster wins a Super Bowl. Burrow with that roster doesn't lose a game. Like he doesn't lose one NFL game with that roster. None.
It would be absurd.
Absurd. It wouldn't even be fair. They would be talking. They would make a rule to get the like any play that they can get out of Joe Burrow figuring out something to do with that offensive line, like something like a tush push. Whatever that they would come up with that with Burrow over there, they would get rid of it in football.
Everybody can't do that anymore. But keeping it on Burrow, keeping it on the Bengals. Let's move on over to the Cincinnati Bengals. But before we do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. The Bengals won against the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. It was a game that it was a game that had a lot of ups and downs. It was a gritty game, and the Bengals found a way to win it. It was funny. The narrative is definitely flipping a little bit after this game, and I had a feeling this might happen, Zim. I had a feeling this might happen. I want to get your thoughts and Daniel's thoughts on the game because I certainly have my thoughts. But Zim, take it away.
I saw a good amount of players, Lou Anarumu guys chiming in last night. I don't know if y'all caught that, like the Allen Georges of the world, DJ Readers of the world, a lot of players, big Lou Anarumu guys went out on a limb and were kind of saying, man, that's a great scheme. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it does. This is so tough, man. Coming into the game, let me say this. I just came into the game as an evaluation standpoint. I know I know a couple of diehard Bengals fans that actually didn't even tune in all the way through the game. Or just like, yeah, man, I kind of fell asleep. And I was like, really? I was like, I still was interested to see like what they're going to do. Like, man, I just want the good draft pick. I understand that. Like, I'm not here to, say this is what you should be rooting for. I wasn't really rooting for them to win. I wasn't rooting for them to lose. I'm just evaluating as I go. But my biggest takeaway from the game was this. I thought that one thing that I've been harping on all season, this is the 9th close game that they had. I've talked about this. Daniel got into it a little bit. I was like, easy. They'll kill you on Twitter if you even mention Burrow in this. But same circumstances that I've been pointing out every single week, that everybody just casually is like, it's the defense. It's the defense. Yes, we get it. The defense sucks or it hasn't been playing well, right? But in all of those close games, the theme is the defense gets stops, makes some plays, gives the ball back to the offense. They did that twice yesterday. Remember, they get the red zone interception.
Yep.
They get a 4th down stop. They then later on get 2 late stops. Joe Burrow has the ball with 3 minutes. He has the ball once with like 5 minutes and some change. Somebody time check me if I'm off on my timestamp. Then he gets the ball again with 2 minutes left. And the offense implodes. And my point that I've been saying is they've been doing that all year. The only difference is last night, as Joe said at the podium, he got a little bit of luck on his side. Maybe it's because it's his birthday. The special teams stepped up as a team effort and made a play to get him back the ball. And then that's when Joe Burrow from 2021, the Joe Burrow 2022 that I know, came back and put a knife in him. You can tell me about how bad you think the defense is, but go to those 9 games and go show me how, like, I get it. They gave up a lot of points, whatever. The offense has failed to close out. The offense is a stronger unit. And then I also will say this. This might be a hot take, and it might be like coddling a little bit. I feel like the defense feeds off the offense. I feel like the Bengals are constructed to be a 27-plus point team, and they get a boost from their offense. And when the defense does make a play in a lot of these games, like when they're up 21-7 and then Chase Brown fumbles the ball, like in the Ravens game, it's crushing to them because in their mind, in the way that they're constructed, it's Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. And I just feel like it's so wild that it's conveniently no Joe Burrow, no Jamar Chase when the Bengals failed to close out 9 of these games. Now they've won 2 of these 9 close games, but Jamar and Joe Burrow both came to the podium and both said before this game that Jamar Chase pointed this out before the game. He said, go look at the games. We had opportunities. So it ain't just Zim saying it. Jamar Chase literally said this before the game. Daniel said it last week as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where, even when you obviously we're nitpicking at this point, but throughout the game, there was many times where this offense had its chances, man. And I think that's where when the Bengals were punting, I was like, man, this is the same story. This is the same shit over and over and over again. And you got to break. And that's the way the ball bounces. You look at these other teams, they're getting breaks left and right. I understand that. I think my takeaway too was just, we talked about this on the recap show, just seeing Joe Burrow happy. And it's almost like his press conference, it's almost like he forgot what it was like, to be interviewed after the game. That's what I saw. He kind of stumbled on his words a little bit. It's like, it was new to him. It was like, oh my, okay, this is what it's like. Prime time, we get a win, him and Jamar having fun on camera. Like, I love that. And I think that it was crucial for these guys, even to just extend into next year and beyond, that, hey, you got to win back on the board. It looked like fun. And the number one thing is these dudes are at the peak and they are supremely confident, and you never want for them to lose confidence. So I'm just happy that I saw that. And obviously we'll get into more of these discussions, but now for better or for worse, if they don't make the playoffs, whatever, at this point, it's like, hey, those 2 dudes are your franchise. And for me, that visual, I think that was so crucial that, hey, all right, all ain't lost. So
Daniel, you said the 2 guys are your franchise. What about the 3rd guy?
Yeah. And that's the other conversation. I'm pretty sure you're talking about T, right?
I'm just the message. Now, Joe Burrow's done all the work for me now. I'm just telling everybody. Always tells me, what does Joe Burrow want? Here we go. Joe Burrow told you specifically. You might be online saying they gotta fix the defense. Joe Burrow specifically didn't say, I think I want these 2 guys.
Yeah. And I think that was crucial. And I think that I wasn't expecting that. And I think that that's something where I feel like Joe Burrow now understands the power that he has. And you saw him try to do it early on in the season with Jermaine Burton, right? That was the first time I really saw him give a vote of confidence for somebody, especially a rookie. And for him to go out there on that post-game, press conference and say that, I think that seriously carries weight. And I would be seriously shocked if the ownership and the front office doesn't put that into serious consideration. So I'm with you. I think that it's a change of pace, and I like it. I think that this is the urgency that this team needs, and I'm excited to see how it pans out.
Malik, do you remember when Joe Burrow did that one time before when he told people, and I quote, because I play this, I'm the weirdest Bengal fan you'll ever hear. He said specifically when Jake Browning was quarterback, Joe Burrow didn't have to have a presser at the end of the season. A lot of people skip past his presser. He comes to the presser and specifically says, I put things in my contract so that we could pay guys like T. Higgins. Right. Nobody remembers that?
I remember that.
That was a presser. Remember, he's hurt. He doesn't have to come to the presser. That's when I first noticed that everybody might have their way that they want to fix the Bengals. Your quarterback that you value more than anything. There's not a Bengal fan on here that could tell me that they don't value Joe Burrow at the highest level. He told you specifically now 2 times, this is exactly what I want.
And that was also after a game for this one. That was after a game where T didn't look good. And I think that's the biggest,
vote of confidence.
It is. Like the dude, 28 receiving yards, I think, only a couple catches.
23.
And he had like 2 drops. He had like 2 drops, I think.
Yeah, he had 2 drops, and he remember he even dropped some last week. But to hear the vote of confidence from Joe Burrow was huge. But can we get to the nitty gritty stuff? Can we talk real now? Now that we got the nice peaches and roses stuff out the way, Bengals won, great feeling, awesome. Joe Burrow finally speaking up, being the leader or the organization that we know him to be. All great stuff, all stuff that you want to see. Again, we talked about the next couple of games being a test, being a chance for us to realize who's going to be with this team for the long haul, who's going to be the person that this team or the players, the coaches that this team could rely upon for the future. Does this win yesterday change your thought process or the outlook of the Bengals offseason in any way, shape, or form? Does it change anything for you? Do you still believe in your heart? I don't even want to put it to this game. Let's say for the remainder of the season, let's say the Bengals run the table, which is what we talked about was a realistic possibility. I got to get your opinion, man. Does this change your outlook on Taylor coaching staff, Duke, Tobin, whatever the case may be, or do you still believe changes are needed?
Absolutely. I'm gonna tell you this: the nitty gritty to me is the T. Higgins thing, bro. Like, I get it, the coaching and like the total.
No, let's talk about that then.
But like, I want to hear your thoughts because long-time season ticket holder guy is sitting there saying they're not going to get it done. You got young punks like me that say, "Shit, I get a chance." You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. I feel like I'm not trying to deviate from your question.
No, it's good.
But I think that T. Higgins thing is a bombshell.
I agree.
That is a bombshell. Like, dude, I know that didn't change what I think about if they had Bill Belichick or whatever, that game last night is probably I don't know, 20-10 and the Bengals win. Like, I just think like the toughness and like the early struggles of like the defense and like the message that like none of that changed. And the chances of them making the playoffs, none of that really changed. It went from 1% to 3%. The Broncos will have to lose every game except one.
Here's what I'll say. You know, on the T. Higgins front, I think people have to understand that maybe the Bengals haven't made this clear because I don't think that they have. The same way that the people on the outside, the rest of the NFL is talking about T. Higgins, Joe Burrow views T. Higgins and values T. Higgins on that same level, if not more, which is why he's going out of his way to make that a reality. You also got to wonder, does that piss Joe Burrow off that they have not gotten a deal done yet? That the fact that this is still a topic of conversation, and now we're talking about T. Higgins as a pending free agent after this year. Because he says he's been adamant since he signed his contract that he wanted T. Higgins back, to Zim's point, right? And he was going to do everything in his power to make sure that that was a reality. If he is already saying that he did some things in his contract to make that stuff a reality, you got to look at the Bengals. You got to say, okay, what's the holdup? Unless he is asking for some unrealistic number that would supersede a Jamar Chase or even become close to a Jamar Chase, why isn't a deal done yet?
What's that number for you? A guy that I really respect, I'm not going to say his name, told me he thought 22. And I said, no. The price for him would probably be closer to 28, 30.
I thought 25, 26.
I'm thinking 28, getting close to Brandon Ayuk numbers. I feel like the Brandon Ayuk, it doesn't have like as many guarantees, but on an annual basis, the cap has now gone up. The price has gone up.
One thing I'll say to you is I think Joe Burrow's understanding the Brady method to a degree. That sometimes, you know, if you want to put together a championship roster, you sometimes have to sacrifice your own financial status, if you will. But I want to make sure everyone understands it's going to take a collective effort to get this T. Higgins deal done in Cincinnati. It's going to take a collective effort, right? Meaning it's going to take T. Higgins maybe taking less than what he might project it to stay in Cincinnati. How bad does T want to stay in Cincinnati? Does T really want to stay with Joe Burrow and stay aligned with Joe Burrow? And I don't know if you guys caught T. Higgins' press conference last night, or not press conference, but his media scrum. He slipped up a couple of times. He was trying to remain coy. He was trying to say, you know, all the right stuff. Well, it's not done yet. But then he was like, I told you, Mark, we're going to need him for the future, not just this year and beyond. Then they're like, well, so do you think it's going to, you know, you'll be back here? Or, we'll see. We'll see. He said a lot of things last night during that media scrum that kind of caught my attention. And
Did you think it was fake? Because a lot of people in the comment section asked, they were saying, oh, look at his body language. I just thought it looked regular to me.
I thought he was trying not to be giddy. I think he was trying to be even keel. But I think, you know, if you know T. Higgins, if you met T. Higgins, he has a bubbly personality. He's a great dude. He's an outgoing person. And like, for me, it felt very like he was very happy to hear Joe Burrow say that about him, because it had been a while since Joe Burrow had actually talked about his contract and talked about the wanting to have that guy in Cincinnati, because the focus had just shifted to Jamar Chase's contract, right? And maybe T felt like, you know, he was the odd man out, and to a degree. Maybe he felt like the organization was choosing, you know, a Jamar Chase over him. But to hear your franchise quarterback say, we love T, we need T, we're going to keep T, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that happens. It's clear those two are having conversations about it, because even T smiled when he was being asked about that. To me, he was trying to remain, he was trying to do a service to his agent as well. Right. He was trying to make sure that he wouldn't come out and say anything. But let me tell you something. These players have more power than they realize. TJ Watt took his contract situation into his hands and said, I want to remain in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
He said, fuck my agent and what my agent wants to do. I'm going to make this happen. He accepted the offer that Pittsburgh gave him. This could be a situation, because I'm going to be honest with you. I like T. Higgins. Zim likes T. Higgins. Daniel likes T. Higgins. Y'all like T. Higgins. Here's the one thing that we got to realize too. There is a little bit of playing ball here. The Bengals can't lowball the guy, but they also have to deal. He also has to deal in the reality that he has missed a lot of games from this season. Last season, I mean, he has missed games. And durability is something that's going to come up with teams, whether teams front load the contract or spread it over time, or maybe they have injury guarantees in there. If you want to remain in Cincinnati, like he says he wants to remain in Cincinnati, like I've been told he wants to remain in Cincinnati. And that's funny that all this stuff is coming out now, because I was told that 2 weeks that he's still actively trying to remain in Cincinnati. Well, got to realize that there might be some sacrifices that take place in order to keep this roster together. If you value playing with Joe Burrow the way you do, it might be some sacrifices. Jamar Chase is a little different. I don't know if there's going to be, because I don't even want to think about what he's going to get right now. He's going to get some astronomical number. But Daniel, I want to get you on the conversation. What were your thoughts on T. Higgins' comments? What were your thoughts on Joe Burrow's comments to T. Higgins?
Yeah, I think that I was happy to see Burrow. I think for me, where my mind goes to, and I'd be curious to see, the numbers and everything. My mind goes to, so what's going to change, right? It seems like at this point, this is maybe just the takeaway after this game, riding high off of a win. It seems like there's a chance where this team, if they do well these next couple games, that they just try to run it back. And you try to go in and, change some things on your defense. But let's say if they do go, sign T. Higgins, you're not going to go out there and get a star defense alignment in free agency. So you're going to go, hopefully the defense, round one, you're going defense there. It seems like this team, and maybe this is a change that, Burrow and Jamar Chase, maybe they're just confident. If you go out and put some, good performances these next couple games, you run the table, there is a chance where you just run it back. And I don't know how I feel. Like that's the hard thing. When I even look at this season, man, and this is the conversation before every game, we're saying this team should win. Like, it's not like, the case of these other teams that we're talking about. You felt confident heading into most of these games. Maybe the last couple games, like the Chargers, maybe, the Bengals can't win close games, so that's a tough one. But before every single game, I was confidently saying, hey, Burrow and Jamar Chase, I'm picking the Bengals to win this game. So for me, I'd be curious to see where does, because also Jamar's got to get paid. So for me, it's like, hey, what are we going to do on the defense side of the ball? And maybe we say, hey, I don't know if there's a world where, you re-sign T. Higgins and you just go completely clean house on everywhere else. And that's where I'm just looking at it saying, hey, what's the solution? I'm not trading Trey Hendrickson. I'm keeping Trey Hendrickson next year. If I'm keeping T, I'm keeping Trey. And that's just how I look at it. So all around, I think that this is a good thing, because it kind of lessens your, the cloudiness when it comes to the T. Higgins situation. This press conference, and Zim, you brought up the one that Burrow did last year. I forgot about that one. This kind of gives you a solidified statement saying, hey, this is what we should expect heading into this offseason. So I think it's good clarification, and I think it's an important vote of confidence. And I'm just curious to see what they do, the coaching staff, because for me, my sentiment right now, maybe like I said, heading off of this win, it seems like there's a chance where if they end off the season good, there's a chance they just run it back. So I don't know. That's just my sentiment after this.
Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
I did want to put people on to, I don't know what we could call this. We could call it, well, I got to get you sold me on Belichick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I sell you on T. Higgins? I don't think I need to sell you, but I think a couple people, I don't want to make this too complicated, but I'm going to try to simplify this as simple as possible. A little financial literacy in here too. All right. From the injury perspective, this is what I would be telling them, or this is if I'm T. Higgins. All the wide receivers that missed games this season, Stephon Diggs out for the season. Chris Godwin out for the season. Brandon Ayuk out for the season. Nico Collins missed 5 games. Puka Nacua 5 games. Cooper Kupp 4 games. Chris Olave 3 games. AJ Brown 3 games. Mike Evans 3 games. DK Metcalf 2 games. Malik Neighbors 2 games. So starting with this, if you think that that's going to be a negotiation tactic, it's probably not going to work. We're in a 2024 landscape of these wide receivers are bigger, stronger, faster. Bengals fans, I get online that I interact with, they're disgruntled, mad, God, why didn't T play? This is the nature of the wide receiver position. They're fast as hell. They're bigger. They're all hurt. Jamar Chase is a unicorn. I have a hot take on him. I think he's the best player in football, offense or defense. That's a whole nother conversation. And he should be in the MVP conversation with Joe Burrow if they were winning. All right. But all these rosters are constructed from a percentage of the cap, right? If you really take the time out to go look at this, most teams, the standard is to have their best 3 to 4 players take up between 32 and close to 40% of the cap.
Mm-hmm.
I did the math on this. If the Bengals were to give T. Higgins, Devonta Smith,
Devonta Smith, okay.
Yeah, Devonta Smith, Waddle, Ayuk type of deal, 28-ish range. Then that puts T. Higgins at 8%, 9% of the cap. Joe Burrow, I wrote this all down. I got on another note. But collectively, even Jamar Chase getting paid $40 million or whatever, which I think is going to be his price, maybe he comes down to 37.5 because he's helping T out, right? He's still the highest paid, but he takes a little bit off the top to give T like $2 million or so. Burrow and them, they work it out later on. Maybe he sells a Batmobile. Who cares? All right. But those 3 players right there, with collectively, with those big, Jamar Chase being the highest paid, Joe Burrow's deal, and T. Higgins getting a 30-28 Ayuk deal, that is 37 to 39% of the cap, which is super normal. Go look at the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Marlon Humphrey, and all them dudes. Like, it's the formula.
It's different positions, yeah.
It's different positions, but everybody has this formula for after you have a quarterback that's elite. And even if you didn't have a quarterback that was elite or paid, you generally take the top 3 or 4 players on your team, and it gets in that 30-something% range.
Mm-hmm.
So this concept that the national media tells people, like, how are they going to be able to play Jamar Chase? It's false. Now, the argument would be, okay, the Bengals front office, they don't really pay anybody. I understand that. But nobody was saying that a year ago when the Bengals paid in the offseason $100 million in cash. They gave Orlando Brown $30 million up front. They gave Joe Burrow $40 million. They paid Logan Wilson. They paid Jermaine Pratt, and they got over $100 million in cash. This is very important. Moving forward, currently, as it stands, the Bengals have over $70 million in cap space. The Bengals had the opportunity to get to $100 million in cap space. Keep up with me. Cut Kappa, Stone, Rankins, Moss, and Sam Hubbard.
Yep.
That alone would get you to $100 million in cap space. So this concept that I see people writing this or whatever, this concept that you think that T. Higgins somehow stymies your plan to fix the defense. No. In fact, it probably enhances it. Once you get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in there, we would go to the draft. We're not looking at any wide receiver projects. The Burton project, me and Daniel, we lost, bro. Burton wasn't even on special teams. He wasn't even a wide receiver last night. They even had the kid that they just brought in off the street playing
Isaiah Williams
or whatever his name is. They had him on special team. The Burton project didn't work. So you don't even have a contingency plan for wide receiver. All NFL teams right now in the NFL, they're looking at your player who I pointed out on this show is the number 1 free agent in all of football, and T. Higgins. Google it right now on ESPN, Sports Illustrated, or PFF. The number 1 prospect, not just the number 1 free agent, not just the wide receiver. So allowing he missed a couple games guy to cloud your judgment of what's going on, you have the most viable, like the biggest asset in football sitting right there, and you have your quarterback telling you that I want you there. In the piece of the pie that Tobin and them boys is talking about isn't an abnormal pie that they want you to believe. Right. The difference or the problem that you might run into is the money aspect and the cash flow of it. I could understand that maybe the Bengals had some issues that I don't know about, that we don't know because their books aren't open. That could come up. But in terms of roster construction, what they're doing is the norm for anybody. If you go look at the Dolphins with Tua and the 2 wide receivers he got, the Ravens and their top Pro Bowl players that they got, the 49ers outside of Purdy are paying Trent Williams. Like, all of those dudes are paying the same amount of money.
Remember, the Chiefs had Travis Kelce.
Yeah,
they had Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. All
right, bro. They might not be able to pay Trey Smith this upcoming offseason. Remember, they had to do a tag and trade this past season with L'Jarius Sneed, because of the problems that could arise. The difference with the Bengals is this, and this is my final point because this is a cook fest at this point.
Right, for sure.
My final point on this is normally a team would say, well, I got a star cornerback that I got to pay. What happened to CTB this year? He regressed. Well, I got a star safety that's emerging. I had to pay. Jordan Battle didn't even get playing time. They said, well, I got a first round DN. I got to pay him. Miles Murphy didn't even get playing time, and he didn't build up anything either. The Bengals literally have no one to pay with $100 million that I just lined up. The Zim plan that I'm gonna get you on board with, Malik.
The Zimothy plan. Let's hear about your 100 days in office. What do you plan to get done?
Defense wins championship, guy. Yep. I got your back. The T. Higgins guys, we are all the same. We will unify this year. The difference is I'm going to get T. Higgins. We're going to go to the draft. The only thing that we're drafting offensively in the first 2 rounds that we will even look at is like the kid Ratledge from Georgia. I'll take a 2nd round guard. Outside of that, I am looking at defensive edge, defensive tackle, and cornerback in the first 4 rounds of the draft. I'm going with the most defensive heavy draft you've ever seen, and I'm going to blow the whole thing up, and I'm going to come back with a young, fast, strong, aggressive defense, and we're going to have dogs all over the place to the point that we don't even know if Miles Murphy is going to be active on Sundays because we got so many dogs up front. That's what T. Higgins can do for you, because once they do that, then we don't have to look at wide receivers in the draft. We don't got to look at none of them early tight ends and stuff like that. The T. Higgins hands actually enhances defensive wins championship guys playing. And we could all get unified on this. Now, if you run away from all those numbers, because we're going to have to cut this clip, and we're going to have to play this back for a lot of people. You could be an old Who Dey fan and be like, those young punks don't know nothing. But I know how to open up a book. I went to college, and I know how to cite, and I go how to, and I only cite from accredited sources. So everything that I just said, you can run it back, and you can play it as many times as you want. You could tell me how it won't work because you think that it won't work, but I just told you why logically and why from a research standpoint it makes more sense.
You cooked, man. You cooked there. I saw someone asking the question in the comment section. They said, well, didn't the Chiefs trade Tyreek Hill? It was balancing back life. Didn't the Chiefs have to trade Hill to pay Chris Jones? See, that narrative falls on the radar. The Chiefs signed Tyreek Hill to a $54 million contract for 3 years. When his contract was up, he asked for a renegotiation. He wanted more money. That's when they traded him because they realized they had to play Chris Jones. So Tyreek Hill got paid by the Chiefs already after his first deal with them. They had Patrick Mahomes in the fold. They had Travis Kelce in the fold. So this is a team that definitely implemented that they wanted to keep their guys for as long as they possibly could. The issue arose when he had an absurd season and he said, hey, can we restructure? Can I get even more than what I typically ask for? And then that's when they allowed him to go seek a trade. And that's when they moved off of him. It wasn't a thing of they didn't want him there. He wasn't productive anymore. So we have seen in the past teams allocate resources to top receivers. We've seen it with Kelce. We've seen it with Tyreek Hill. And let me ask you this, Zim. What type of deal do you think realistically could get it done for T. Higgins? And I do want to get to your question, Crypt Keeper. He asked about Coach Lou if he goes. I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. Zim, what are your thoughts though?
I'm just speculating. I got to put that on record too. I know nothing about this. I'm speculating. But in this, if I'm T. Higgins' agent, fine agent, shout out to David Mulligetta. He's going to work for us. That's another little trick to my little plan or whatever. But he's going to work for the Bengals if this doesn't work out. But what I'll be telling them is, hey, T. Higgins, I'm going to give you a 3-year deal. It's going to be similar to close to the Ayuk deal. You have missed games. And by me doing that, it sets you up so that when you're 28 years old in the prime of your career, you can now go and get the best offer and be the biggest wide receiver one on the planet at that point when you're entering into your prime. All players want to get into their third contract. Your big contract is really important, but the next one is the big one because you might not ever get another one again. So, I'll be setting him up for that type of plan. It wouldn't be a long-term deal. And then the cap hits that match up with Jamar Chase's monster ones at that time frame will probably be the writing on the wall. By that time, all these defense guys that we just drafted, we have one that's now emerging to our version of TJ Watt. So the writing would be on the wall at that point. And then you would say, okay, but I'm still not just letting you go.
Right.
It's still a tag and trade. And the reason why I say that, and you could be a old head fan and be like, Bengals ain't sad you have to do that. Go Google Dan Wilkerson. How that worked out. That was a tag and trade that was executed by the Cincinnati Bengals for a player. Ironically, that was one of the biggest free agents currently about to pop up, just like T. Higgins. So if the deal doesn't get done, David Mulugheta, the most connected agent in all of sports, should be able to rub elbows all across the NFC and go come back with my first round pick for my number one free agent. So the Zim plan is pretty much bulletproof. The one thing that we can't do is concede and say, well, the Bengals are just going to let them walk. Don't speak that into existence. We're going to cook. We're going to come back. And if I don't get you T. Higgins, we're going to come back with a first round pick or shit. Let's go get a player for trade. I mean, a player for player. Give me Derrick Brown for the Carolina Panthers. Give me Dexter Lawrence. Give me Jeffrey Simmons. We'll do a player for player swap. And those are teams that I just outlined that would love T. Higgins services. How do I know? Because their fans sit online and Photoshop T. Higgins in their jersey all freaking day.
For sure. Now, let's dive a little deep. By the way, Zim, very good job the way you explained the whole T. Higgins situation and the impact, because I believe that you sort of shifted the conversation back to T. Higgins a couple weeks ago before Joe Burrow even commented. I want to give him his flowers. He shifted the conversation back to T. Higgins, saying you cannot let that guy walk. You can't let that guy just walk out the door. You have to get something for him, or you have to keep him in the fold because he is so impactful. And now you have your franchise quarterback Joe Burrow saying it, and now it's like wow, we got to keep T. Higgins. So I do want to give Zim his flowers on that because
I heard you say you want to know. I talked to some people sometimes, and I kind of, like just when Jamar Chase, when Burrow wanted Chase, and everybody was like, well, you got to blow. I talked to some people. I know that Burrow, I play around on Twitter a lot, and there's a little satire with it, but it does say Joe Burrow's burner account. And I like to think that, I mirror some of what I think he's thinking a lot of different times. So I think the misconception is that you got a Billy Price your situation. And I don't want a Billy Price your situation. People say, what does that mean? That is a year when you were so gung-ho on fixing the center that even when the best one came off the board in Ragnar and you didn't get a James Daniel or anybody like that, you still Billy Priced it. Don't be thirsty for this defensive surge to the point that you're not thinking logical and rational. Because like I said, my plan is all predicated on making the defense better by keeping the top three offense still in place. There's only one position that I really would even upgrade, I guess, early in the draft, and that's guard. And then what are we talking, like tight ends or something like that? Like, I mean, I don't know. Figure that out.
No, for sure. The conversation that I want to have a transition to is that we got to get Zim out of here soon. I guess we can go to the sign that's on my desk. I don't know if you can see it. It says progress, not perfection, man. And that's all we really want to see from this Bengals front office. We want to see progress. We don't want you to necessarily be perfect. We just want to see progress. We want to see you guys making the right decision. But I want to have a conversation. There are people out there that are saying, so are we going to fire Lou still? I believe in criticizing, but I also believe in giving people their flowers. Let's have a conversation. Why is this the narrative we can't move off of right now? I think what Lou showed last night, and let me be very, very clear. Let me be clear. You can only play who's in front of you. I've also seen Cooper Kupp rattle off 3 winning games for the Dallas Cowboys. Need I remind you, this Dallas Cowboys team beat the Bengals with Cooper Rush last time we played them. People forget that. Cooper Rush is a capable quarterback. We like to simply throw out there and say, oh, well, play Cooper Rush. The Cowboys offensive line was beat up. Oh, well, Bengals didn't have their starting left tackle. There's a lot of intricate details that you can go off of. Well, the Bengals don't have their starting quarterback out there. There's a lot. Let's have the conversation, though. And yes, balance and bike life. That's my exact thought. Lou should only go if you're getting rid of Zach Taylor. This performance that we saw last night was a vintage Lou Anarumo defense performance, if you ask me. Save the offense, get them multiple stops, But you know what's crazy? You know what the narrative would have been? If the Cowboys would have went down the field and scored, the narrative would have been, let's say they would have said, forget the fact that we got sacked, forget the fact that we had to punt the ball back, and forget the fact that the punt got blocked. The narrative would have been, damn, the Bengals defense is shit. That's what the narrative would have been, which is why we judged football off of 4 quarters, which is why when I sit up on here with a mic, I judge this staff over 6 years of seeing this staff. And the one takeaway for me is the defense has been probably the one unit that showed its ass several times. I saw someone say in my YouTube channel comment, they said, move off of Lou because at least Zach got us to the AFC Championship into the Super Bowl. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa. Are we forgetting the standout performance our defense had when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl run? Are we forgetting that? I saw Marcus Mosher say on Twitter last night, this Bengals defense is putrid. It's awful. It's bad, blah, 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 blah. You know, they don't have any game-changing players. Well, that's what happens when you let game-changing players walk out the door. It looks like this. Guys just don't forget to coach. Alan George has no fight in the game, and he's saying Lou has a great scheme. You have players who are no longer on this team going to bat for Lou. I have yet to hear a player speak out about him being a terrible defensive coordinator. My honest opinion is the Bengals defense has been some of the more consistent units when they've had players to help them. The people that say, fire Lou, fire Lou, fire Lou, fire Lou, or, you know, they say, let's move him out of here the whole 9 yards. I could tell you don't watch film, respectfully. I could tell you don't know ball. And there are those people out there that are saying Lou needs to go. They say Lou needs to go. But what you're doing is you're doing the exact thing that has allowed the Brown family to skate by for the last couple of years. You're deflecting from the real issue. Lou carried, because I remember a time, I don't know if you remember, Zim. I don't know if you remember, Daniel. I remember a time where people were saying Burrow is being carried by his defense. I remember that. I remember a time where the offenses the Bengals are facing in the playoffs, guess what? We're shut up. We're shut down. Teams like the Titans, when they were running the AFC, when they were the top seed and all that stuff. I remember a time. I remember the Lou Anarumo defense that went into Buffalo and shut Josh Allen down. I remember that. I remember Lou Anarumo and his defense shutting Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs out in the second half. I remember that with Tyreek Hill, with Travis Kelce, with McCole Hardman, with Mahomes playing elite. I remember that. So you take cooks out of the kitchen and you think replacing those cooks that gained a lot of notoriety is the reason why people came to your restaurant? You think taking those cooks out of the kitchen and replacing them with people or getting their first cook job is going to give you the same result? And then you say, you're a terrible head chef. Listen, if we're going to spin narratives, let's spin a narrative here. Guess what? Without Lou Anarumo, the Bengals probably aren't in the AFC Championship. Without Lou Anarumo, the Bengals probably aren't in the Super Bowl. This is what it looks like when you actually surround the guy with talent, players that are coached that want to learn. It could look better. It could look better. The fact of the matter is, and I'm not saying the defense is crap, because I can remember earlier in the season when the defense didn't look completely broken. What did you do to help that guy when his starting cornerback went out? Nothing. What did you do when a very good rotational piece on the defensive end and Cam Sample that was supposed to take a leap this year goes out for the season? What did you do? Nothing. And then we say automatically, Lou's terrible. Lou's awful. The one thing I will say about Lou, of criticizing him, the one thing I will say is I think he took way too long to turn to players, younger players. That is what I will say. I think it took way too long to turn to Jordan Battle. That is what I will say. I think you knew what Von Bell was early on. But he had hope that maybe he would change it around. I don't look at Lou and I say he's a bad defense coordinator. I'm the same guy. I've been consistent when it came to Lou forever. Man, the dude ain't tight. I have no dog in the fight. But one thing I will say to you Bengals fans out there is the same sentiment with people that I've talked to around if that guy got fired from Cincinnati, he'd be a defensive coordinator by the next week. He would be. If you're going to move off of him, you should be cleaning house for the staff. Which brings me to a next point, Zim, really quickly. I don't think a victory absolves this coaching staff of any wrongdoing. If you wind up missing the playoffs with this staff, with Joe Burrow having the season he's having, Jamar Chase having the season he's having, that might even, push me more to make change. Because maybe you say it's not the players. Maybe you say it is the coaching. Maybe you say with a better coach, we could go further. You don't just instantly rattle off a bunch of wins if the players are terrible. If the players, if you lose every single game the rest of the season, the takeaway you could have as a front office? I could say to myself, you know what? The players are bad. We need an infusion of youth. Let's keep the staff. But if you wind up winning a bunch of games down in the stretch, that tells me, holy shit, why weren't we doing this early on? Why weren't we finding a way to win early on? With a last place schedule, why didn't we figure out a way to put it together early on? That would be the narrative I would take away. And so that would put people into question. Regardless, changes are happening in Cincinnati. Somebody about to lose their job. We just got to figure out who it's going to be. Somebody has to be accounted for this season. Somebody has to take ownership. So for me, when I look at it, I do not think it's all peaches and cream. I think that there are still critical decisions that need to be made regarding this staff. Zim, what say you?
I don't even know how to follow that up. I don't, you know what I mean? I agree, man. I mean, I think it starts, I think some of the things that we can't see are the things that are kind of hurting us. Like, I don't know if the Bengals with their cash flow problem, I don't know, what that looks like. Do they need to bring in an investment group? Like, all these different things. Those are the issues that I think might give us more results on what we're looking for, because I don't know if it's just the coaching. You know what I mean? Like, it's so hard to assess it. But I will say that I've been on record to say this. They've been very stubborn. Like, even yesterday, no Dejon Anthony, though. Mm-hmm. Like in an evaluation process. And they're like, well, these are my guys. And last night, Stone played good. Yeah. So, but being accountable isn't going up to a press conference or answering an interview and just saying, yeah, it's on me. Being really accountable is saying, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down with my guys. And if the Bengals fail to make the playoffs, it's just the nature of the business to me. It's not really like a Lou thing. I think Lou would go somewhere else and go and cook. I think Zach Taylor on the Panthers staff as like some form of like quarterback coach or whatever. I feel like his personality would be perfect for like Bryce.
Zim, one thing I know you got to get out of here. I want to say that I got 5 minutes to say what I'm about to say really quickly. Here's what I'm going to, matter of fact, 3 minutes, because I want to get your opinion. Everybody's saying, no, I want the Bengals to lose for draft positioning. I need the Bengals to lose for draft positioning. We need to get a top 10 pick. We need to have a top 8 pick. We need it. We need it. We need it. We need it. That way we can get one of these elite players. The Bengals last year had, the 16th overall pick?
Yeah. Might have been later. 18.
I think it was I'm pretty sure it was this. I'm not exactly sure. Somebody
was 16 Belichick.
Anyway, and they still had their pick at elite players there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the Bengals probably, if they did miss the playoffs, they'd probably be picking somewhere in the teens. They'd probably still be picking somewhere in the teens. But hear me out. The narrative is we need to lose. We need to lose. We need to lose because we need to help draft positioning. Why is that? Why do you want the Bengals to get a top 8 pick? Because hear me out. No Bengal fan wants to see your team actually lose. Winning feels good. Winning cures a lot of things.
Right.
Why do you want the Bengals to have a top 8 pick? Or top 10 pick?
Can I say that I don't think this is the thing about tank. I think that you should only tank if you're tanking for a generational quarterback, like a quarterback. But now that you have a quarterback, I just think that the people aren't thinking about the long-term effects and what that does for a locker room. Like next year, the guys that they bring in, imagine if they were just a 5-win team, and then Joe Burrow walks into the locker room with Jamar Chase and all these different people, and they're like, "Yeah, this is the standard. This is what we do."
But it's deeper than that. The reason why you want the Bengals to tank or lose, not saying everybody, I'm just saying I have seen this chatter, is because you're not confident in the scouting department. You're not confident in Duke and his staff because you believe that you need to have a surefire pick in order to draft a surefire player, if there's such a thing,
right?
With minimal risk. That's the reasoning why. So if you feel the only way this team can have effective drafts is if you have an obvious pick, and there's obviously a misconception on, the ability to find some of these gems. Maybe it's due to your scouting department. Maybe it's due to the head man in charge. Who do you think that falls back on? Who really is the person to look at? Because to me, the method to people asking for that is because you're not confident in the front office making critical decisions or finding that gem in the draft. And it all goes back to Duke and his staff. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's also some other deep-rooted stuff in there too. You got to think, like, I know you and Daniel do an excellent job of covering like everything, right?
Yeah.
One of the things is I've gotten older is I've fell out of love of college football. The only time that I do watch college football is now. It's like now I'm getting into my assessment part to go look at, prospects, and immediately like the kid Ratledge from Georgia steps out. I said, that's the guard that we should draft, right? And that's how I look at college football. A lot of people also have a vested interest in their college football team, who they watch every single Saturday on college football too. Yep. And they use that subconsciously to say, this is what I think that the Bengals should get. So a guy like a Mason Graham, for instance, or whatever, right? I haven't seen enough of them, but everybody would tell you, this is the best thing smoking, just like they told me with Reuben Foster, just like they told me with Chase Young, right? But in their minds, too, this is another thing. If you get out of this top 10, this is a phenomenal pick. It takes a lot of college viewers and their subconscious bias that they don't even know exists. It takes it like where they're like, damn, we would have had a chance to get that. But to your point, if you're properly scouting, you should be getting Amarius Mims, whether it's 18 or whether it's 10 or 20 something. And that's the part where we have a gray area, I think.
100%. Zim, I appreciate you so much, brother. I know you got to jump on another show right now. We appreciate you for hopping in on the sit down, man. We're going to definitely wrap it up here soon. And we're going to have I'm going to make sure I text you back and forth and all this stuff like that. And I'm looking forward to having you back on the show. Make sure you guys give Zim a follow. I'm sure all of you are already following him, but make sure you guys give Zim a follow. He does some great work. We'll catch him, brother.
Go to hold on real quick. Go to zimhude.com. I'm gonna be dropping 25% off later on today. Also, make sure y'all like, subscribe, and make sure you retweet this. If you're on Twitter or X or whatever right now, make sure you all retweet this show right now so that we can get more people aware of some of the points that we're talking about, because I feel like Malik and Daniel do a really good job of bringing up these topics that a lot of people in other shows are not bringing up. And some of those topics, I ain't trying to be critical, they're a little boring to me sometimes. I think that these topics right here are very important to what the Bengals are about to do. And if you enjoyed the show or you enjoy what we're doing, please make sure you retweet and tell other people about the show.
Man, greatly appreciate that, Zim. We try to do a great job here, man.
And get Daniel a hat so we can complete the triple crown. I
know,
crown.
man.
You have a crown. We need a crown on you.
The triple crown.
It's crazy. It's crazy. He usually is wearing a hat, but for some reason he wasn't. But appreciate you, Zim. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, man. Hey, I want to move on over to UFC briefly before we head out of here. Ian Garry just fought Shavkat Rakhmonov, had a standout performance. His stardom goes to the roof after that performance. Daniel, I think that Ian Garry proved, taking this fight on short notice, I think Ian Garry proved that he is made for this division. He's proved that he could potentially be a champion in the future. I think Shavkat looked iffy, but I also don't think Shavkat's bad. I think the reason why Shavkat looked shaky is in large part because of what Ian Garry was able to do, how Ian Garry was able to stifle him, how Ian Garry was able to force him to keep the fight standing, right? He wore on his arms with the takedown attempts over and over and over again. And the fact that Ian Garry was able to stuff those, Ian Garry proved that if you do have good takedown defense, you have a solid shot at a guy like Shavkat Rakhmonov, because I feel like on the feet, he's sort of pedestrian a little bit, but you always have to be mindful of the takedown, which allows him to get his strikes going. But I came away impressed with Ian Garry. I'm not shocked by the performance. I expected it, which is why when we did our video, I talked about it a little bit. I expected Ian Garry to look this good. I picked Ian Garry to win the fight. I thought Ian Garry was going to win the fight. I understand the optics. I understand why he did lose, but I also thought Ian Garry did more, personally, if you ask me. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and it was also worth the pick. I mean, when you think about it, it was a 5-round fight, 25 minutes. And after those 25 minutes, it went to a judge's decision, and it was 1 round away from flipping the other way. So I think 25 minutes is a lot of time. And for him to look that competitive in a sport where it is filled with the toughest guys, the guys who will fight anywhere, at any time, any place, you'd be surprised how many people were frightened of this guy, Shavkat Rakhmonov. You'd be, curious of how just this dude's aura and how he's undefeated and what was the mystique about him. There was one guy that didn't have the mystique about Shavkat, and that was Ian Garry. And I just applaud him for not only taking this fight, but the confidence that this dude had. I think that it rang, true. And I think that it showed this dude was not blowing smoke up everyone's ass when it came to this fight. He said he was going to walk in there. He was confident he was going to beat him. And that was not fake. That was not manufactured. I truly believe Ian Garry stepped into that octagon and said, hey, I'm going to beat him. Because you'd be surprised. A lot of fighters, although they've trained, although, there's been, hours and years put into the sport, I truly feel when both fighters step into that ring and step into that octagon, that there is a consensus, hey, that maybe this guy is better than me. Maybe I don't have the best chance to win this fight. But I truly believe that Ian Garry knows and believes he is the best guy in the world. And I think that confidence is a crucial point to a guy becoming a champion. I think that's what's going to take him, to potentially becoming a champion, because when you got a division like this division with the Leon Edwards of the world, with the Kamaru Usmans of the world, with Bilal Muhammad's of the world, it is an extremely competitive division. But I believe that Ian Garry will definitely be back. And Malik, if we see another fight with Shavkat and Ian Garry, I think both fighters step into that fight. And I think Ian Garry is more confident than Shavkat because of this performance.
I agree. Let us know down in the comment section what you guys think. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live. Daniel, let's get some of your best NBA bets for today before we head out of here.
Yes, sir. So we only got 2 games on the slate, so it's pretty much a lighter slate, but I'm still a huge fan of 2 games. And I tend to go with, on these lighter slates, I tend to go with the studs. And I think that that's, the pathway to victory, in my opinion. I think that I'm going with Giannis today. They're facing the Orlando Magic. And the Bucks have been playing a ton of close games. The Bucks are not a team that's blown anybody out, but they're also not getting blown out. And I think that looking at Giannis against an Orlando Magic team who is missing Paolo Banchero, who is missing Gary Harris, they're a scrappy team, but they're not an unstoppable team. I'm putting this very simply, I'm just taking Giannis's over in points here. I'm taking him 30 plus. He's been a guy who's consistently gotten to the line. He's gotten to the line 12 plus times over the past 4 games. This dude's playing 38 minutes a night. They got Dame Lillard, but the rest of these dudes, they're starting Andre Jackson. The Torian Prince is getting 35 plus minutes a night. This is really the Giannis show. And I think that the Orlando Magic have a good defense, but if this game's close heading into the fourth quarter, I wouldn't be shocked if Giannis has 35 plus heading into the fourth quarter. And then we got a good matchup. It's the Thunder versus the Mavericks. This is a very, very good matchup. I like the Thunder to win this game, but I'm looking at Luka Doncic. They're without Maxi Kleber, and what they've been doing recently, they've been running that 2 big lineup. They've been running with, Daniel Gafford and Maxi Kleber. They've been running with Derek Lively and Maxi Kleber. The fact that Maxi Kleber is not in this game tells me a lot. And when I look at their last matchup, Luka was a dominant rebounder against this team, and a team with only Isaiah Hartenstein at center, no Chet Holmgren. I'm taking Luka's over in rebounds today. Like I said, the fact that they're without, their backup center, the Mavericks, Luka's going to have to rebound a lot, and I think that he gets 10 plus rebounds today, but I'm taking his over rebound. So those are my 2 favorite bets for NBA.
Awesome. Listen, we want to thank you guys so much for making us a part of your daily routine. I want to thank Zim for hopping on the show and having the conversation and talking everything through. Remember, there's only one way you should wake up, talk sports, have the conversation, debate with your friends, and that is the right way. Thank you for making us part of your daily morning routine. We'll be back tomorrow for State of the Jungle live at 7 p.m. But, as always, we appreciate you guys. We hope that you enjoy the NBA games that are on tap tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.
All they ever do is win, so kick back, relax, the team WSN.